everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into test plans.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you might be thinking test plans, that sounds a little dry, right?
Right.
But trust me, they are anything but.
Yeah.
So imagine this, you're launching this brand new app, but users can't even log in.
Oh, no.
Because the system keeps crashing. Or even worse.
Oh.
The app is sending out like a ridiculous number of notifications every minute.
Oh, my goodness.
Talk about a disaster.
Yeah, that's not good.
And that's where a solid test plan comes in.
Exactly. A well-crafted test plan is like your safety net. It ensures a smooth and successful launch. It's like having a roadmap for your entire testing process, guiding you every step of the way.
So it's like that essential checklist you make before a big trip.
No?
But for software, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to forget your passport.
Right.
Or, in this case, miss a critical bug before launch.
Exactly.
But let's break it down. What exactly is a test plan?
So think of it as a formal document that outlines everything you need to know about your testing process. It defines what you're testing, what you're not, testing the resources you'll need, the strategies you'll employ, and even potential risks and how to handle them. It's pretty comprehensive.
Wow, that's a lot more than just a checklist.
Right.
But why is a test plan so crucial? What are the real benefits, especially for someone like me who wants to make sure their project is a success?
That's a great question. The benefits are huge. First off, a test plan ensures you've got every angle covered.
Yeah.
It's like having a superpower that helps you catch those sneaky bugs that could completely derail your project.
Right.
Remember that app launch we talked about?
Yeah.
A test plan is your shield against those potential disasters.
Okay, that makes sense. But beyond catching bugs, what else does a test plan bring to the table?
Well, imagine you're working on a team project and everyone has a different idea of what needs to be tested. It'll be chaos.
Yeah.
Right? A test plan acts as a central document that aligns everyone involved, from the developers to the testers and even the stakeholders. So everyone's on the same page and working towards the same goal.
So it's like the conductor of an orchestra,
Yeah.
keeping everyone in sync.
Exactly.
I like that analogy.
And on top of that, a good test plan helps you manage resources wisely.
Okay.
It forces you to think ahead about the time, people, and tools you'll need, preventing any last-minute surprises or budget blowouts.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing the value here. A test plan isn't just about finding bugs. It's about setting your entire project up for success from the start. But there must be some specific elements that make a test plan truly effective. What are the building blocks that make up this crucial document?
That's where we get into the nitty-gritty. A well-structured test plan, according to the document you shared, has several key components. Think of them as the chapters in your testing playbook. First, you have the basics, like the test plan ID and title, which simply help you identify the plan. Then you get into the meatier sections, like the introduction and objective, which provide context for the project and the plan's purpose.
So it's like setting the stage before the main act.
Precisely. Next comes the scope of testing, where you clearly define what will be tested and what won't be tested.
Okay.
For example, if you're building a mobile game, you might prioritize testing the gameplay and graphics while leaving social media integration for a later stage.
Right, because you can't test everything at once.
Right.
So prioritizing what's most important is key. What else makes up this testing playbook?
Next, you have the test strategy, which is where you outline your overall approach. It's like choosing your weapons for battle.
Okay.
Will you be doing functional testing to see if the app works as intended?
Okay.
Or maybe exploratory testing to uncover those hidden bugs? Perhaps a combination of both.
So you're picking the right testing methods for the specific challenges you're facing, just like a general planning a battle strategy.
Exactly. And just like any good battle plan, you need to know the terrain. That's where the test environment comes in.
Okay.
This section outlines the hardware, software, and network setup needed for testing.
Makes sense.
You need to make sure you're testing on the same devices and browsers your users will be using.
That makes perfect sense. You wouldn't test a mobile app on a 10-year-old phone if your target audience is using the latest models.
Right. And of course, we need a timeline. The test schedule provides a clear roadmap for when each testing activity will take place. You don't want testing to hold up your entire project, so having a schedule ensures everyone knows what needs to happen and when.
So it's like a project within a project with its own set of deadlines and milestones.
Exactly. And who's responsible for hitting those milestones?
Yeah.
That's where roles and responsibilities come in. This section clearly outlines who's doing what, from writing the test cases to executing them and reporting the results. It's all about accountability and making sure everyone knows their role.
Right, because a test plan isn't just a solo mission, it's a team effort, and everyone needs to be on the same page. What else do we need to include in this comprehensive document?
Next up, you have the test deliverables, which outlines the documents and reports generated during testing.
Okay.
Think of it as the evidence you gathered to prove your software is ready for prime time. This includes things like test cases, bug reports, and a final summary report.
So it's like documenting your journey through the testing process,
Yeah.
making sure everything is trackable and accounted for.
You got it. And because even the best laid plans can go awry, we include a risk and contingency plan.
Uh-oh.
Here, you identify potential problems that could arise and outline solutions in advance. For example, what happens if a key team member gets sick?
Right.
Or if a critical feature isn't delivered on time. Having a contingency plan helps you navigate these challenges and keep the project moving forward.
It's like having a backup parachute just in case the first one fails. Always good to be prepared for the unexpected.
Absolutely. And finally, to make it official, we have the approval and sign-off section. This outlines who needs to review and approve the test plan before it's put into action. It's like getting the green light from all the key stakeholders before you launch your rocket.
So it's the final checkpoint to ensure everyone's on board and the plan is ready for liftoff.
Wow, that's a lot of components.
I'm starting to see why having a test plan is so essential. It really does cover all the bases. But how do you actually go about creating this document? It seems a bit daunting to put all these pieces together.
Don't worry, it's actually more straightforward than it might seem. There's a logical step-by-step process you can follow to make the whole process much more manageable.
All right, I'm all ears. Let's dive into that step-by-step guide and demystify the process of creating a test plan.
Okay, so you're ready to build your own test plan.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, the first step is all about gathering requirements. Think of it like laying the foundation for a house. You wouldn't start building without a blueprint, right?
Ah, makes sense. But what do these requirements look like in the software world? Are we talking about lines of code or something?
Not quite.
Yeah.
Requirements are essentially a detailed description of what the software is supposed to do. You need to understand the project inside and out, and that means diving into any documentation, user stories, and having those crucial conversations with stakeholders to really get a feel for what they envision.
Okay, so it's like getting into the mind of the user and the creators to see the software from both sides.
Exactly.
I like that. But what are user stories? Can you explain that a bit more?
Absolutely. User stories are short, simple descriptions of a feature from the perspective of the person who will be using it. For example, a user story for a music streaming app might be, as a user, I want to be able to create playlists so I can organize my favorite songs.
Yeah.
It helps everyone focus on the user's needs and how the software will meet them.
Ah, so it's not just about the technical stuff,
Yeah.
but also about how people will actually use the software?
Yeah.
I like that. So once we've gathered all these requirements and user stories, what's next in our test plan building journey?
Next comes defining the scope. Imagine you're painting a room. You wouldn't just start slapping paint everywhere, would you? You decide which walls to paint, which ones to leave alone. Maybe even add some accent colors.
Okay, so you're saying we need to set clear boundaries for our testing efforts.
Exactly.
We can't test everything all at once, so we need to prioritize.
Exactly. Defining the scope is all about deciding precisely what features and functionalities will be tested and what will be left out for later stages. This helps manage time and resources effectively. You wouldn't want to spend weeks testing a minor feature while a critical one goes unchecked.
Right, got to focus on the big wins. So once we know what we're testing, how do we actually go about testing it? There must be different approaches, right?
Absolutely. Step 3 is all about choosing your testing approach. This is where you pick the right tools and methods for the job, depending on the project's complexity and requirements. Think of it like choosing the right ingredients for a recipe. You wouldn't use chili peppers in a chocolate cake.
Okay, that's a delicious analogy.
Right.
But in terms of software testing, what are some of the ingredients or approaches we can choose from?
One common approach is functional testing.
Okay.
This is like checking if all the buttons, links, and features of your software work as they should. Does clicking log in actually log you in? Does the search bar actually find what you're looking for? It's all about verifying that the basic functions are working correctly.
So it's like quality control for software,
Yeah.
making sure everything operates as expected.
Yeah.
What other testing flavors are there?
Then you have exploratory testing, which is a bit more freeform.
Okay.
It's like giving your testers a map and a compass and letting them explore the software, trying to find unexpected bugs or issues.
Yeah.
It's less about following a script and more about using their intuition and experience to uncover those hidden problems.
So it's like sending out scouts to explore uncharted territory and report back on any potential dangers. That sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah.
What else is in our tested toolkit?
Another essential approach is regression testing.
Okay.
This is all about making sure that new changes or updates to the software haven't broken anything that was working before. Think of it like remodeling your kitchen. You wouldn't want to install new cabinets and then realize that you've accidentally blocked the plumbing right.
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Yeah,
So regression testing is like double checking that everything still works harmoniously after making changes.
exactly. And there are many other testing types like performance testing, which checks how well the software handles heavy loads,
Right.
and security testing, which looks for vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit.
Okay.
It's all about choosing the right mix of testing approaches for your specific project.
Okay, so we've gathered our requirements, defined the scope, and chosen our testing approach. What's next on our test plan creation checklist?
Well, every great endeavor needs a team, right? Step 4 is all about identifying resources.
Go.
This includes figuring out who will be on your testing team, what tools you'll need, and what testing environments you'll be using. Think of it like assembling your A-team for a mission-critical operation.
Okay, so we're gathering our troops, sharpening our tools, and setting up our base camp. But how do we know which tools and team members are the right fit for the job?
That depends entirely on the project. If you're building a complex web application, you might need a team of experienced testers with specialized skills in different areas like automation or performance testing. And you'll likely need sophisticated testing tools and environments to simulate real-world conditions. But if you're working on a smaller, simpler project, you might be able to get by with a smaller team and more basic tools.
So it's all about matching the resources to the scale and complexity of the project.
Exactly.
You wouldn't need a full-blown orchestra to play a simple melody.
Precisely. And speaking of timelines, that brings us to step 5, setting a schedule. Just like any project testing needs to happen within a specific time frame, you'll need to create a realistic schedule that outlines when each testing activity will begin and end, taking into account the overall project deadlines.
Right, because you wouldn't want testing to become the bottleneck that delays the entire project, but how do you create a schedule that's both realistic and efficient?
It involved careful planning and coordination. You'll need to break down the testing process into smaller tasks, estimate how long each task will take, and then sequence those tasks in a logical order. It's like creating a detailed itinerary for a road trip, making sure you hit all the important landmarks and arrive at your destination on time.
So it's like mapping out the testing journey, making sure we stay on track and reach our destination, which is a fully tested and ready to launch product right. Once we've got our team, our tools, our schedule, then we're finally ready to start testing.
Almost. We still need to document everything we've discussed. Step 6 is all about writing and reviewing the actual test plan document. This is where you bring all those pieces together in a clear and concise format that everyone can understand and follow. Think of it like writing the script for your testing movie, making sure all the actors know their lines and the scenes flow seamlessly.
Okay, so we're putting pen to paper, or rather fingers to keyboard,
Right.
and transforming all our planning into a concrete document. But how do we ensure that this document captures everything we need? A&D is clear enough for everyone to understand.
Well, it's helpful to use a standardized template
Okay.
to make sure you're covering all the essential components. This could be something as simple as a document in Google Docs or a more sophisticated template provided by a test management tool. The key is to organize the information in a logical way that's easy to follow.
So we're not just dumping all our ideas into a giant document. We're structuring it in a way that makes sense and is easy to navigate. But what about the review part of this step? Who needs to be involved in reviewing the test plan?
Reviewing the plan is crucial to ensure that it's comprehensive, accurate, and aligned with everyone's expectations. You'll want to involve key stakeholders, including developers, testers, product managers, and anyone else who has a vested interest in the success of the project.
So it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Getting feedback from different perspectives to ensure we haven't missed anything crucial. It's like having a panel of experts critiquing your work before you present it to the world.
Exactly. And this feedback can be invaluable in identifying potential gaps or areas for improvement. It's much easier to make changes to a document than it is to make changes to software after it's been developed.
Right. Catching those mistakes early on can save a lot of headaches down the road. So we've gone through all 6 steps of creating a test plan. It seems pretty straightforward when you break it down like this. But I'm guessing it's not always a walk in the park, right? There must be some bumps in the road along the way.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Creating a test plan, like any complex endeavor, can come with its fair share of challenges.
Okay, I was afraid you were going to say that. But let's talk about those challenges. What are some of the common roadblocks people might encounter while creating a test plan, and how can they overcome them?
Well, one of the biggest headaches we often encounter is incomplete or unclear requirements.
Oh, yeah.
It's like trying to bake a cake without knowing how much flour to use.
Okay.
If you don't have a crystal clear understanding of what you're building, it's almost impossible to create a test plan that covers all the bases.
I can imagine that would be frustrating. You're basically trying to hit a target that keeps moving.
Right.
So how do you deal with those situations where the requirements are a bit hazy?
The key is communication.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, push for clarification, and have those sometimes tough conversations with stakeholders to ensure everyone is on the same page. It's much better to iron out those wrinkles early on than to discover them halfway through testing.
Right. It's like making sure you have the right ingredients and measurements before you start making. Otherwise, you might end up with a cake that's flat as a pancake. Speaking of potential disasters, what other challenges can trip up the test plan process?
Another common culprit is the dreaded tight deadline. Sometimes we're under immense pressure to deliver a product quickly,
Yeah.
and that can put a serious strain on the testing process.
Right.
It's like trying to fit a week's worth of activities into a single day.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Yeah. I can see how that could lead to cutting corners and potentially missing important tests. So how do you balance the need for speed with the need for thorough testing?
It's all about prioritization.
Okay.
When time is of the essence, you need to laser focus on the most critical features and functionalities.
Right.
Those are the elements that absolutely must work flawlessly for the product to be successful. You might have to make some tough decisions about which tests to defer or streamline, but it's all about making strategic choices to maximize your impact within the given time frame.
So it's a bit like triage in an emergency room.
Exactly.
You need to focus on the most critical patients first to ensure their survival. Makes sense. Any other challenges we should brace ourselves for in the wild world of test plan creation?
Well, this one might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked. Communication breakdowns.
Uh-oh.
You could have the most brilliant test plan in the world, but if the team isn't communicating effectively, things can go south quickly.
Yeah.
It's like a game of telephone where the message gets distorted as it passes from person to person.
Oh, yeah. Communication is key in any team effort, but especially when you're dealing with something as detailed and nuanced as a test plan. So how do you keep those lines of communication open and ensure everyone is on the same page?
Regular check-ins and updates are essential.
Okay.
Utilize those fantastic collaboration tools like Slack or project management platforms like Jira to keep everyone in the loop, share progress reports, and flag any issues that arise. It's all about transparency and keeping the information flowing freely.
Right. It's like having a shared map where everyone can see where they are, where they're going, and what obstacles they might encounter along the way. Speaking of tools, are there any specific tools that can make the process of creating and managing a test plan easier and more efficient?
Absolutely. The software world is brimming with fantastic tools designed to streamline the testing process. For starters, you've got your classic document editors like Google Docs or Microsoft Word,
Right.
which are great for creating and sharing the basic test plan document. But if you're looking for more specialized features,
Okay.
there are dedicated test management tools like TestRail or Zephyr.
Okay.
These platforms offer a centralized hub for managing test cases, tracking progress, generating reports, and even collaborating with team members. They can be a real game changer for teams serious about testing.
Wow, so it's like having a whole toolbox at your disposal with each tool designed for a specific task. But with so many options out there, how do you choose the right tools for your needs?
It really boils down to the complexity of your project, the size of your team, and your budget. Some tools are more robust and feature-rich, while others are more lightweight and affordable. The key is to do your research. Try out a few different options and see what fits best with your workflow and preferences.
Right. It's like trying on a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
You need to find the ones that are comfortable, supportive, and help you go the distance. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored what a test plan is, why it's so crucial, the essential components, the steps to create one, and even the potential challenges we might encounter along the way. I feel like I've graduated from test plan boot camp.
Me too. I think we've equipped our listener with a solid understanding of how to approach test planning strategically and effectively.
Definitely. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the importance of a test plan. It's not just a box to check off, right? It's truly an investment in the success of your project.
Absolutely. Think back to that disastrous app launch we talked about at the beginning with the crashing login and the relentless notifications. A well-crafted test plan is your shield against those nightmare scenarios. It helps you catch those pesky bugs early on, streamline your testing efforts, and ultimately deliver a high-quality product that meets users' expectations.
So it's not just about finding bugs, it's about building confidence in your product and ensuring a smooth and successful launch.
Precisely. And remember, even though we've been laser focused on software testing, the principles of test planning are incredibly versatile. They can be applied to any project, big or small, where planning, organization, and risk mitigation are essential.
That's a great point. Whether you're planning a wedding, renovating your house, or even writing a book, having a well-defined plan can make all the difference.
Absolutely. It's all about breaking down a complex task into manageable steps, identifying potential challenges, and having a strategy in place to navigate them successfully.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. Think about a project you're currently working on, or maybe one you've completed in the past. How could you have benefited from a more structured approach to planning? What potential pitfalls could you have avoided with a well-defined test plan?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder. And remember, the beauty of a test plan is that it's a living document. You can adapt it, refine it, and tailor it to fit the unique needs of your project. The key is to start somewhere and embrace the process of continuous improvement.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating exploration of test plan creation. Until next time, happy testing.
It was a pleasure. Keep those test plans coming, and remember, a well-tested product is a happy product.